And welcome to the Black Liberation Caucus meeting for the month of October 2021. My name is Julie Kabukani, and I'm facilitating the meeting from Boston, Massachusetts. I'm a member of the Wilkes Boston branch. I'm a registered nurse, and I'm working as an RN for the Mass General Brigham. I'm also a graduate student at Regis College in the Family Nurse Practitioner Program. In Wilkes, I'm a member of the AHR Subcommittee on UN Women, and I'm interested mainly by following up on CEDAW, the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. I hope everybody can see the agenda that George just put in. So we will start with introductions. I'm going to call on each participant to introduce themselves, their name, location, their thoughts, and anything else that they want to share. And it's going to take 1 minute per person. So George, shall I start?
Absolutely. Oh, you want me to start? George Friday here. I am in the Triad branch. I live in Gastonia, North Carolina. And it's been a very full but pretty good day. And I'm glad to be at the end of my Zooms. After this, I can relax, and I'm looking forward to that. But great to be here with you.
Thank you, George. Ashley Carrington. Is Ashley with us? I guess not. Dee Murphy.
Hi, my name's Dee Murphy. I live in central Minnesota. I am now with the Jane Addams branch. And there is a large Minnesota branch. I'm just finding out now, but at this point, I'm going to stick with virtual until I know more about what's going on. And there's some thoughts I'd like to share, and questions I'd like to ask. But I'm going to wait until we go through the agenda because I don't want to, I want to be able to go through the agenda with everyone and then we can have other discussions. So thanks so much.
Okay. Deidre Widowsey. Sorry if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly. Is Deidre with us? Okay, we're gonna go to Mary White.
I'm sorry, I'm Deidre Whittlesey. I am part of the Fannie Lou Hamer branch, and I'm in Columbus, Georgia.
Okay. Mary White. Okay, I guess Mary White is not ready. So we're gonna go to Philip. Can you introduce yourself?
Good afternoon. My name is Philip Cole. I am a member of the San Francisco branch, and I am just sitting here nervously sitting out a big storm we're currently having. We've had more rain in the last 12 hours than we've had in literally the last 50 years in a 12-hour period. And my stepson who owns a house and his wife going to Hawaii where they spend their weekends. And so I get to babysit the house. And so I'm a little nervous. So if you see me jump up and run for a bucket, this is the reason why. Thank you.
Thanks, Philip. Shamaye Haynes.
Yes, my name is Shamaye Haynes, and I am excited and thankful to be a part of this group. I am from the Charlotte, North Carolina area, and I believe the name of our group is the Triad, I believe. And I was invited to come by George Friday, so thank you for that.
Welcome. Teresa Your turn.
I'm sorry. I've talked to Khadijah Bell and CC Anderson. George, CC Anderson needs you to email her the link and then she can hop on. Khadijah is driving and she said she has the link and she should be able to get on in about 15 or 20 minutes. But I am Teresa Elamine, longtime civil rights, human rights veteran, old, probably the oldest one on this call. I'm pretty sure I got you beat, Philip. Oh no, I'm not. Mary, she's my elder. But at any rate, I'm the organizer for the Fannie Lou Hamer branch here in Columbus, Georgia. Thank you, Julie.
You're welcome, Teresa. Is Ashley with us? Ashley Carrington? Well, I guess everybody introduced themselves. So we're gonna go through the agenda. So we're gonna be talking about, we're gonna get a report from the Advancing Human Rights Committee. So we're gonna get updates about immigration justice, racial justice, ending mass incarceration and the death penalty, the UN decade reparation, the UN women. And then we're gonna talk about structure proposals. Then we're gonna proceed to branch building, integrating existing branches. And then we're gonna talk about WILF US National Board nominations and elections. And we have one at-large candidate, Mr. Philip Cole of the San Francisco branch. And we're also gonna talk about other board nominations. Teresa is gonna talk about the December 11th Fannie Lou Hamer Human Rights Conference. She's also gonna talk about the WILF US Truth and Reconciliation process proposal. So without further ado, I think, George, you're talking about the Advancing Human Rights Committee update. You're gonna conduct the discussion.
I can get us started here.
Okay.
I'll certainly need help from other people who are on the Zoom here who have been in some of these subcommittee meetings.
Okay.
George, who's here from Immigration Justice? The convener is Tina Shelton. And so you and I both attend those meetings. So why don't you start with the update and I can join in. I think Dee has been in attendance in those meetings. So the three of us can kind of add an update, but why don't you start it, George? And then of course, racial justice is your update, George. And my update is ending mass incarceration. And I'll talk a little bit about the UN decade and where we want to go with that.
And I'm gonna talk about the UN women. We had a meeting yesterday, so I can give an update on that.
Sounds good.
Yeah, we're really counting on that. I'm glad it's the last thing. Great.
Okay, so the Advancing Human Rights Committee started re-meeting in, I believe, April or May of this year. And it was split into subcommittees or organized by the current convener into subcommittees. One of those subcommittees is Immigration Justice, and that's being convened. None of these subcommittees at the moment have a chair. They're just those people who have volunteered to set up a Zoom and invite interested people to come together and meet about the subcommittee topic. Under Immigration Justice, that convener is Tina Sheldon, who is in the Philadelphia branch. And I've attended 2 of those immigration justice meetings. I would say that they're still in the process of identifying who can be the co-chairs or chairs of immigration justice, and a little bit clarity that's not quite crystal clear on their scope of work. I know that in The first meeting I went to, the topics were about what's going on at the border and what's going on in Haiti. In the last meeting, we focused a good bit about what's happening in Haiti and the need for chairs. So that's immigration justice to the best of my knowledge.
So
There are
George,
members.
before you go on to racial justice, let me
I've got
just,
another couple of sentences on immigration justice, but
yeah, because I'm disagreeing with what you're saying about immigration justice, so please finish if you don't mind.
no problem. There are 3 members who aren't here today in our Black Liberation Caucus, who are members of the Black Liberation Caucus, Adrian Barnell, Rosa Saavedra, and Rita Gonzalez, who've expressed interest in the Immigration Justice Subcommittee. But Rita was the only person who was able to come to our most recent meeting that we had this week. So that's what I have on immigration justice. Teresa.
Yeah, well, that's inaccurate because Adrian Bernal and Rita were both there. And what has been happening is that the Southern Anti-Racism Network has asked most of our board members to join WILF. So we have quite a few board members who are members of WILF, like Ashley Carrington is a board member, Adrian Bernal, Rita Gonzalez, and Rosa Saavedra are all board members. And the idea of the subcommittees, which Joan Goddard created, was that they would all have conveners. And we've established that as a kind of part of the structure proposal, George, that the conveners are actually what you would call chairs, because it's conveners of the subcommittees. And then Joan Goddard has been acting as chair over the overall Advancing Human Rights Committee, but the convener title does not change in the proposal we'll be discussing later. Immigration justice is Tina Shelton, as George mentioned. She is a convener because she has a Zoom account and she starts the meetings. What we don't know are conveners, who are the actual conveners for the UN cluster, UN Women, and we haven't had a meeting of the UN decade. But George, I guess you should do the racial justice report if no one else has anything to add for immigration justice. But it's a very important committee. And at our meeting this past week, which was on October 21st, we did discuss, I believe there were 9 people in the meeting. The convener was there, 2 people who are Latinx people. And so it was a good meeting in that we had a good discussion about the structure proposal. Now there are 12 people in the meeting now. So Julie, could you acknowledge who the 2 people are who joined us before George goes to racial justice? Can't hear you, Julie. You're muted. Can you see who the 2 people are who joined us?
I'm trying to see, but it looks like no
CC
one.
Anderson
Ashley,
joined us.
is
CC
she
Anderson
there?
joined us.
Oh yeah, I see CC Anderson, yes.
And Mary White has 2 things like Philip.
Mhm.
Oh, okay. Well, George, I guess we keep moving the agenda with the racial justice report.
So racial justice has also met twice. We're going to meet again on November 12th at 1 p.m. It might be 2 p.m. And in the racial justice meeting, we had a conversation that made it really clear that racial justice touches on immigration justice and ending mass incarceration and the death penalty. You'll see that better when you see the flow chart. And we did also talk about our scope of work. There was some discussion in the last meeting, which I think had 8 or 9 people, 3 or 4 of them were white people. And in that scope of work, it was ranging from, is this around internal work for the transformation of WILF US? Is it about what WILF US is doing as a whole, globally as an organization? What we were clear about, and is maybe, well, is a strong recommendation we have for racial justice, at least if not other subcommittees, is that we are building on work that we are doing locally. Within your chapter, within your town, your state, your region, what is that work that exists now that we can build on? And that's where we'll start. That'll be a starting place on our next agenda, is exploring how do we do the work and build our branches while we're doing the work around racial justice. And that meeting, again, November 12th. That's it for me. Anyone have any more to add on racial justice? Anyone who was at the racial justice meeting that wants to add more?
No, you nailed it.
Thanks, Dee.
Welcome.
Well, on ending mass incarceration and the death penalty, we met first in September, and we've had 2 meetings in October so far. We met on October 4th and October 18th. So we've had at least 3 meetings, possibly more. I'm the convener of that subcommittee. Recently, at the recommendation of Margot Schulter, who is in the San Francisco branch, we added the death penalty. Before it was simply ending mass incarceration, but we added the death penalty to really point out the whole criminal justice system needing significant reform in an abolitionist context, abolishing the death penalty and abolishing all of this incarceration, mass incarceration of so many Black and brown people. So we're starting to get to what our scope of work is. But as George pointed out, the key thing that we push in EMIDP, ending mass incarceration and the death penalty, is that work must be done locally in your local metropolitan areas in addition to the state, because the criminal justice incarceration system is set up state by state. So if you want to end mass incarceration in North Carolina, you got to do it through the State Department of Corrections. And so that's the point that we're helping people to think about, is how we actually get the work done. It must be done state by state. That's why it's so important that branches are engaged in the work. And so the Fannie Lou Hamer branch is thoroughly engaged in the work, since we have prison labor in Columbus, Georgia, where the city turns out 500 slaves every day to do work for the city. They pick up the garbage, they pick up the recycling, they work at the DMV, they work all over. So that is our work in Columbus with the Fannie Lou Hamer branch. We've been working on it for years, so we can jump right in on the ending mass incarceration. Our next meeting is at 1 p.m. on November 15th. We seem to like Mondays for our meeting. So our next meeting is Monday, November 15th at 1 p.m. We do strictly 1 hour meetings, so feel free to join us 1 to 2, November 15th, Monday. Check. And I'll just continue on with the UN decade for people of African descent / reparations. I recommended this subcommittee, but the committee hasn't met yet. I'm willing to start out by convening the committee, but what we said we would do at this meeting is find out who's interested in being a part of the UN decade and the work we agreed to do as part of our book on reparations. It will fall under the UN decade. The UN decade ends on December 31st of 2024. So I'm hoping that Shemaya, because she expressed such high interest based on reparations being a kind of family commitment. So I would love to hear from Shemaya on whether or not she would be willing to be the convener. I definitely want to.
Hold on.
Shemaya.
Yes, I heard the last part. Can you repeat that?
Well, I'm simply asking if you would be willing to work with me on convening the next meeting and consider eventually becoming the convener of ending of the UN decade / reparations.
Absolutely, 100%.
Wonderful. Well, let's pick a date if we can. How many? Let's find out. Julie, is this okay to do this now so that we can find out how many people want to be a part of that meeting, and we can just make sure we set the date so when we can report that to Joan Goddard, because it's going to be mostly people of African descent who will be staffing the UN decade / reparation, though it's not restricted to us. The Black Liberation Caucus is restricted in that way, but the UN decade reparations can't be restricted to only people of African descent. So I would imagine that there will be some white allies who will also join us, but we want to get the nucleus of the subcommittee started today. So other than me and Shemaya, who else is willing to join? If you could put it in the chat, because I'm thinking we definitely need to meet in November before the November 29th meeting of the whole. So Shemaya, look at your calendar and see what dates you're available in November and what time of day. So if we could meet before Thanksgiving, that would be great in November. And so November 22nd looks good for me. It's a Monday. Shemaya.
Yes, I'm here. I'm just looking at my calendar. Hold on.
So the week of November 2nd, 22nd, which is also, I'm on
Now
vacation.
you don't have anything available prior to that week?
Oh yeah, I do have lots. So
Yes, I'm actually in a job transition that's gonna allow me more flexibility around these things. So let's I do have some more flexibility. So it looks like actually next week I'm fairly open except for Friday, Monday evening, Tuesday evening, and then of course Saturday I have an event.
well, would you say dates? Because this is the week of October 24th. So the week of the 31st takes us into early November. So
Yes, I'm actually open pretty much during that time.
so the week of the 31st?
Yes.
Want to skip Halloween, so let's look at November 1 through 6. Now, election day is the 2nd, so let's avoid meeting before that. So
we can actually do the 1st of November, which is a Monday, and we can do that anytime during the day, or I have a meeting.
Well, Shemaya, election day is the 2nd, and we have at least one Black Liberation Caucus person who is running, and I think she might be interested. So if we could move towards Friday, because I'm booked solid on the 3rd. So Friday the 5th, are you available?
I am, except for between 1:30 and 2:30 in the afternoon, but everything else is open on that, at that time.
So I see in the chat, Julie says she's interested. So Julie, do you work 7A to 7P?
Yes, I work 7A to 7P, and I can, if the meeting could start at 8 p.m. Eastern time, any day, that's fine for me.
Well, is
8 p.m.
there
Eastern.
anyone opposed to an 8 p.m. meeting on Friday, November 5th? Well, hearing no objections, why don't we set the meeting, Shemaiah, and I will send out the Zoom link, and we'll just send it out to the whole Black Liberation Caucus list, George, if you could help with that. George, are you there?
I am.
So, George.
Yes, I can send out it to the whole list. When you send me what you want to send, I'll forward it to the list.
Well, I know exactly what the meeting ID will be because it's my personal meeting ID, and I always use the same meeting ID to avoid confusion. So we'll be using the same meeting ID that we use for ending mass incarceration. And so I will send that to you, George, and you can send it out to the whole list after this meeting to let people know that we'll be meeting on November 5th at 8 p.m. That's a Friday. And Shemaiah, if you could drop your contact information in the chat, I'll drop my contact information in the chat because you and I will be co-facilitating the meeting on Friday, November 5th, with the heaviest weight kind of being on you, but we'll come up with the agenda. Shemaiah, are you with me on that?
Yes.
Put your contact information in the chat so that everybody has it, since you're going to be ultimately the convener of the UN decade. So, Madam Facilitator Julie, I think we can move the agenda on to UN Women.
Okay. So I'm part of that subcommittee, and we've met at least 3 times. So the last meeting was yesterday, and we were able to come to a consensus on what we are going to work on. So we decided that we will work on human trafficking and all aspects of human trafficking, sexual, labor exploitation, and also organ trafficking. So at this point, we have started a database of information around those topics. And we also mentioned working on CEDAW, the Commission on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. So I think Barbara and Jennifer are the conveners. And Barbara is not too, she has some reservation about that, about the CEDAW. But anyways, in case we work on it, I will really want to work on finding out why the US hasn't ratified the treaty yet. So maybe our role will be to research the reason why we have not ratified it, and then maybe write some policy briefs. I'm not sure how it works, but maybe write some policy briefs that we can submit to the Congress. So that's it.
Well, this clearly is something that requires a lot more conversation, Julie. I'm really disappointed to hear that you have not asserted yourself as a co-convener, because I was told by Joan that you were also a co-convener, that it was actually you and Barbara. Then I found out that Jennifer had kind of consumed the role of convener. But I think you do have to step up out of the respect for our transformation of WILF into an anti-racist organization, that we cannot have all white conveners over the UN women thing in particular. I know that Tina Shelton is probably looking for somebody to be co-convener with her, who is a woman of color, and we're going to try to help her do that by getting Rosa or Rita to do that with her. But right now it's based on Zoom accounts. So who uses their Zoom account for the meeting, Julie?
Barbara Nielsen.
Well, you should definitely say that you are a co-convener. Would you do that? Because in the exchange back and forth with Jennifer, she said, why can't Julie speak up for herself? And apparently you didn't do that at the meeting yesterday.
I did. I sent an email. I'm not sure you received my email. I sent one email today, and I explained the reason why I cannot take on a leadership role. I'm in school, so it's very time consuming, and I'm also working. You know, I'm working and my unit is being converted. I work on a med-surg floor, and it's being converted into a cardiac unit. And I'm going to take on the role of charge nurse. So that's a lot of task for me. I won't be able to really concentrate on, being a convener or co-convener. And also Barbara and Jennifer, I mean, they are very adamant about, they started the whole thing and, they have a hang of it. So I agree with you, there should be inclusion and diversity, and I will do that as soon as I graduate. And it's gonna take me about 2 years, but for now, I cannot do it. It's very
Well,
much.
I hear you, Julie, and I do understand. We love nurses. And the Boston nurses are some of the best nurses in the world, because I got my brain aneurysm clip in Boston. So Brigham and Women's, I love nurses. But there are too many of us in this committee for at least not one of us to be able to join the UN Women as a co-convener. So it would be very helpful, George, if you would take down the agenda, because we're getting ready to discuss the structure anyway. But if you could take down the agenda so we could see all the people who are in the meeting. Oh, Mary White, that's an interesting photo you have. Who in this meeting sees themselves kind of well-versed in UN matters? Shamaya, because there's no objection to you being co-convener in both UN, in the UN cluster, while Julie is finishing up her work, that you could hold down that space, because I will certainly attend those meetings. But Julie, before Shamaya speaks, somebody needs to mute themselves. I think it's probably you, Shamaya. But
It's me, and I actually have an in-person meeting that I have to be at in 10 minutes. So I have to leave the call now, but we have our meeting date and time that that we're going to meet, and I'm here to support these efforts.
Well, I will give you a call, Shamaya, because we'll be talking about you. Because I think we need your help with the UN Women thing. But I'll give you a call, because I did pick up. Is your email shamaya.crenshaw@gmail.com?
Yes.
Well, I will be emailing you, and I have your, looks like a Cincinnati number.
That's right. I'm originally from Cincinnati. I kept my phone number.
Well, thank you so much, Shemaya. Well, enjoy your other meeting. But next time, we hope you'll be prepared to stay until at least 5:30 because these meetings are scheduled from 4 to 5:30 when we meet.
Yes, this has been sort of a standing meeting for a long time. And sometimes it really does conflict with other things, but now that I have a role in this, I'll work out the time and all of that.
Well, thank you. I'll talk to you soon, within a few days.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Look forward to
Shemaya.
hearing from you.
Thank you, Shemaya.
Mhm.
Well, Julie, I need to hear a little bit more about what happened at the meeting yesterday. How many women of color were in the meeting for UN for Women? Were you the only one, or were there others? You need to unmute yourself, Julie. Can't hear you.
Well, this was a phone call because Barbara's Zoom was not working. So we had one of those free conference phone calls. So I couldn't really figure out the race or ethnicity of some of the participants. But I know there is a woman, Brianna Hernandez. I believe she's a woman of color and she's a PhD student. She's working on human trafficking. So she was also on the call and she's very much interested. There is also another lady, yeah, from Kenya. She wasn't there yesterday, but she's also part of the committee. So there is at least 3 women of color, I might say, yeah.
Well, let me ask you this because I asked this question. Are those students women of color? Are they actually members of WILF? Because my impression that they were students, but not members of WILF. Were you able to determine that yesterday?
I am confident that one of them is a member, the woman from Kenya. She just recently joined WILF. But the other one, Brianna, I'm not sure. I can find out. I'm not really sure.
Well, where is the woman from Kenya living now?
Or that I don't
Well,
know.
I'll get up with Barbara Nielsen. Because Barbara Nielsen has a long history of not being reliable when it comes to inclusion of the participation of women of color. She was an AHR chair for many, many, many years until she was removed for lack of accountability. But I do see that Philip has his hand up, and I see that Ashley is saying she's interested in UN Women. Is that true, Ashley? Ashley, if you could unmute yourself and just say, you're saying you're interested in UN Women and the UN Decade as well.
There's also a note from Mary White in the chat.
Well, could somebody read it?
Mary wrote that she's having computer problems. She's using her brother's computer. It means she doesn't have a microphone and has to respond in the chat.
Well, in spite of the technical issues that you're raising, George, the question is, did Mary say something about she was interested in one of these UN committees, George?
No, I was just giving information that was in the chat.
Well, Ashley Carrington has written, I am interested as well. And I'm trying to get Ashley to unmute herself to say what she meant by that. Which UN subcommittee, Ashley, are you saying you're interested in, or are you interested in both, Ashley?
Hi, yes, I'm in chat, so I will have to respond in chat right now.
Oh, okay, she must be in some other meeting.
Oh, good.
So let me take a look at what she wrote in chat. I'll join along with Ashley, is D. Murphy saying. And so, D. Murphy, are you saying both? Both UN? Wonderful. Well, that's great. So we are building, so everybody's going to be at the meeting on the 5th, then it looks like. Wonderful. So Julie, I'll leave it back up to you because Philip has his hand raised and you need to call on Philip.
Okay, I see your mic is muted,
Oh, yeah,
Miss Julie.
sorry.
So I'll go ahead and speak up. I just wanted to let folks know I did sit on the meeting for the UN for Women yesterday. I am trying to attend as many calls as humanly possible leading up to the election for the National Board of the U.S. section, since I am have applied for an at-large seat on the board of directors. So basically, I am just basically a fly on the wall and not a participant. But I try to do the disarm and all the other ones, the Middle East Committee, and I was listening to that call also. Thank you.
Well, I would appreciate Philip's take on the call in terms of the inclusion of Julie and the issue of CEDAW, because the call is supposed to be more than about human trafficking. I know Joan is talking about setting up a sixth committee so that Jennifer can have her way with UN Women being all about human trafficking and the students that she's working with. So I'm trying to understand if we need to break off to do a sixth committee, a subcommittee, which is going to be part of the discussion that takes place on November 29th. I'm really opposed to the proliferation of subcommittees. I think 5 subcommittees is plenty for now because we're spreading ourselves too thin, going to too many meetings already. So what was your take and your impression since you were
Well,
there?
there was a lot of talk on trafficking. They actually, from what I understand, they want to concentrate on CDOG, and they would like to get Julie's more input from her on her involvement and interest in CDOG. That, from what I understand, that they want that to be one of their principal fields of interest, and trafficking actually was the other principal area of interest that was discussed. I don't think, from what I heard in the call, Julie spoke more about the harvesting of organs. Was what she actually expounded on yesterday, but I know that the CDOG is of great interest.
Well, that's very helpful, Philip. So we just need to, since Julie has expressed feeling a bit overwhelmed with her career, and it's going to be great. You're going to be a nurse practitioner. That's going to be wonderful because that is a step above. And so I guess we should move the agenda since we have a date, November 5th for the UN decade. And Julie, when is the next meeting of the UN for Women?
We haven't set up a date yet.
Okay.
We're working on submitting our thoughts to Barbara Nielsen by tomorrow, Monday, and I guess we will set up a date.
So I'll be in touch with Barbara. Thank you.
So
we're at the structure proposal.
Structure proposal, yeah. That's
can you put the structure proposal on the screen, ma'am?
George?
Wake up, George. George?
think we lost George.
No, she's there. She's muted. She may be dealing with something. Yeah, there we go. So I'll just go ahead and Cece is saying she's interested in UN Women, so I'll be sure to let Barbara Nielsen know that there's a bunch of us interested in joining UN Women. But this is the structure proposal for the Advancing Human Rights Committee of the whole. Now, most of us have seen this structure proposal. It was introduced to the Ending Mass Incarceration and the Death Penalty Subcommittee on the 18th, and there was great support for it. It was introduced to the Immigration Justice Subcommittee, and there was great support for it. But since the meeting was done on the phone and not done on Zoom for the UN Women still have to discuss the proposal, though Jennifer and Barbara Nielsen both have the chart, and Joan Goddard has been to at least 2 meetings where the proposal was discussed. And so can people kind of turn on their cameras if possible, or raise their hands and say if they've already seen the proposal. I know that G. Murphy has seen it, George has seen it, I've seen it, and Julie has seen it. So who hasn't seen it? Philip, Cece, and Deidre. Am I right?
I've seen it.
Yes.
You've seen it, okay.
I have.
Have you seen it, Deidre?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And Mary White has not seen it, and I think Ashley has not seen it. So out of the 10 of us in the meeting, there's at least Cece, Ashley, and Deidre who haven't seen it. Are we saying? Great that so many of us are interested in UN Women. So, and Mary White. So Mary White, Deidre, and Cece have not seen the chart. Well, this is a proposal. It is customary for most issue committees to have chairs and co-chairs. The Middle East Peace and Justice Action Committee has 2 co-chairs. The Disarm in Wars issue committee has 3 co-chairs. Most of the other issue committees like Women, Money, and Democracy have 1 chair. And so these issue committees have been basically given to longstanding members of WILF, and so the leadership has customarily been all white. Now, the history of advancing human rights is that Barbara Nielsen ran the committee for many years, and about a year ago, the president of WILF, Darian, she removed Barbara Nielsen as chair of the committee because she said that Barbara was not accountable, she was not turning in reports, etc. So in removing Barbara Nielsen, she allowed 3 Black women to take on the role of 3 co-chairs of the committee. Well, Philip and I have been accused of making their lives miserable somehow. And we have been accused of being at fault for them leaving. But all 3 of them said that they left because they had other things to do. One was Setu, who's in the Boston branch. The other one was Martha Collins, who's in the Milwaukee branch, and she's very busy with stuff, and she quit. They all quit at the same time. Valerie Young, I believe, is her name. She's part-time in Detroit and part-time in Florida, but I think she considers herself a member of the Detroit branch. And so when all of them quit, there was no Advancing Human Rights Committee for quite a few months. And I kept pushing Darian and Joan to restart the committee. So there was a very strange meeting in May of this year where George and I, Darian and Joan were the only people in the meeting. And it was so frustrating. I was just left the meeting and George and I both left the meeting. So the next meeting was in June. And so Joan took on the role of being de facto chair of Advancing Human Rights. And so she started setting up these meetings and creating all these subcommittees. And so what I'm proposing is that we get back to the co-chair model. And I have been quite open about being interested in being one of the co-chairs. Joan Goddard has made it clear that she is not interested in being one of the co-chairs. And so I had hoped that Julie would join me in being a co-chair of Advancing Human Rights. But given what she just described, I think that's not possible for her to do. So at some point down the road here, we've got to find someone who's willing to serve as co-chair. There's not a big hurry to do it, but I'll stop now because Philip has his hand raised, Julie. So could we let Philip speak?
Okay, Philip, you have the floor.
Okay, I just want to quickly illuminate the reasons why there was a dispute in who was the leader of the AHR, and back before the 3 Black women were plucked out of the sky and put on the in charge. Basically, Darian, the U.S. president, said that Barbara was not turning in minutes and reports in a timely fashion. Barbara said, well, if you want me to resign, I will. But she actually did not resign. But making that statement, Darian just assumed that you're now resigned and whether you like it or not. So basically, there was a very long-running dispute on whether Barbara actually had resigned or not. That led to a lot of dissension and confusion. That's when one of the members of the Boston branch, this Michael guy, and Darian found these 3 Black women to basically take up the mantle. And Teresa and I have a disagreement on why they left their position. Mine was that they were hoodwinked and tricked into taking a position where they were going to be basically set up to fail, and basically walked away. And they were just basically, tricked into taking the position. And that's when the AHR became not a viable committee anymore. And because of the dissension, and Darian decided to shut it down completely. And that's my take on the background of what happened. And this reconstituted version of AHR, it comes in the wake of all that dissension of last year. And I don't think the committee has matured yet. And I think they've done a very poor job in resurrecting the committee from top to bottom. And it's going to definitely need some revisions sometime in the future, most likely after the election of the board, where they'll have a new program chair put into place. And that program chair should have the responsibility for basically righting the wrongs of the past. But we'll have to see what happens on that note. Thank you.
Well, in terms of disagreeing with Philip on this, I was at the meeting where the very hostile removal of Barbara took place. It was a surprise attack. Darian pulled together a meeting. There were about 8 of us in the meeting, and she announced, to Barbara's surprise and to my surprise, that Barbara was no longer chair of Advancing Human Rights. And that's when what is a kind of usual and customary culture of WILF US, white women who have been in WILF for a long time began to make war against each other based on old vendettas. Because I talked to Barbara Nielsen for hours, and she explained that she had run against Darian in the election for president, and Darian won, and that Darian has been trying to destroy her ever since. That's from Barbara Nielsen's own mouth. And so what the truth of the matter is that Advancing Human Rights is better now than it's been since all the years that Barbara Nielsen was holding court, where we would all just sit at her feet while she talked to us for hours every night that she was running the Advancing Human Rights. I was in it for years, long before Philip. So I want to get that part clear. And Barbara knows what she did, and it wasn't right. But what we have now, thanks to the Black Liberation Caucus, we are staffing 5 different subcommittees based on the creation that Joan Goddard put together. And it's the Black Liberation Caucus. We are generally the majority of folks at the meetings, except for the UN for Women. So you will see that coming true with the UN decade as well. I can tell you in the ending mass incarceration, racial justice, and all of those subcommittees, Philip, is overwhelmingly Black Liberation Caucus members. So we're doing just fine. This proposal is not intended to be in a hurry. What we said at the immigration justice meeting, that we didn't see the proposal being adopted until the new board was seated. We have no idea who's running for the board, except you're running for at large, and you're a shoo-in. I'm sorry, Julie, but
yeah, we're running out of time.
Well, let me go back to the proposal. I don't know why George took it down, because we need to finish helping people who have never seen it before understand it. So the proposal, we did it simply as a flow chart, Advancing Human Rights, 2 co-chairs who would oversee all of the subcommittees. It's the proposal. We put together the committees where most of us are going to all these meetings. I go to racial justice, immigration justice, ending mass incarceration, and I'm going to be starting to move into the UN cluster as well, because I do have the time to do that. But the social justice cluster is convened by me, George Friday, and Tina Shelton. The vision is that on at least a quarterly basis, the conveners of the social justice cluster would come together and talk about the overlap. And then for the UN cluster, we're just getting started with the UN decade, but we see the UN decade and the UN for Women as being part of a cluster. And so once we have the discussions about this and we get all the questions out, then we'll be ready to hopefully present to the new board and say who wants to about adopting it. So I'll stop now and you can start calling on people for the discussion, Julie. I'm sorry.
Okay, all right. So we're done with the structure proposal. Now we're going to branch building.
Oh, no, Julie, there are hands up on the structure proposal.
Oh, there are hands, okay, so
I think Dee, there's lots of stuff in the chat, Dee. I thought George was gonna be helping you with this, but there's lots of people. Cat
Can,
said want to speak.
so Dee asked some questions. Do you want to ask your question now, Dee? Are they in relation to this, to the structure proposal?
No, no, they're not. I've seen this chart. I think it's great. I'm
Oh,
fine
okay.
with it.
Well,
All right.
Philip has his
Philip.
hand up, Julie.
So, yeah. So we
Okay,
want to
I just want to make it clear that I joined in 2017, the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. That's only as far back as my history goes. But I will say this, I am happy to hear what Teresa said after I spoke. I think it's very constructive, and hopefully things will go forward in a very progressive manner. So basically, there's no disagreement between her and I on the overall issues. Thank you.
thanks, Philip. And George,
Oh, I can
George,
take my
you're-
hand down. I put my hand up and took the image off the screen to check the agenda and put my hand up at 5 o'clock to flag that you had gone overtime on this topic, and now it's 5:16.
okay.
Oh,
So we're gonna,
we didn't get started until 4:15. So I think we have to have some flexibility, Madam George. And in the chat, Cece wrote that she's interested in UN Women in New York and DC 3 to 4 times a year. So I'd like to hear from Cece Anderson on what she means by that comment. Cece, would you unmute yourself and explain what you mean about New York and DC, that you've been dealing with UN Women?
it's
George,
that. I'm not.
But you can take down the structure proposal, George, if you don't mind, so we can see people. Thank you. So Cece is muted, but she wrote in, there you go.
Okay, yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. I just wanted that comment to let you know that I am at DC and in New York. I've attended several of the UN meetings 2 to 3 times a year. Yes, so I'm familiar and would like to participate as much as possible.
Oh,
And-
great. Well, UN Women, as soon as we know when the next meeting is, CC, then all of us who have expressed interest will know. So Julie, we're counting on you to at least let us know when the next meeting is, because you're still a person in UN Women, even though you can't take on the co-convener role.
Yeah, but I'm still a member. I just can't be chair or convener. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Julie.
All right. So now we're gonna go to branch building, and it's you, Teresa, right?
Oh, wow. Well, I feel like I'm consuming so much airtime here, but we should all weigh in on this because I'm building the Fannie Lou Hamer branch as an organizer. And the fact that we only have one Black person in Boston, one Black person in San Francisco, one Black person in Fresno, I would like to hear from the two of you who are here, Julie and Philip, about how you plan to increase the number of people of color and particularly people of African descent in your branches.
That's a good question. Philip, you wanna start?
Okay, I can't help but laugh. I am working on a project to join forces with some Black churches in the San Francisco Bay Area, and maybe just expose Wolf to these Black churches. But I'm not going to be recruiting anybody in those churches. Principally, I think it would be unethical to use that project for that purpose. And I chuckle because I'm lucky to see, on average on a day, I might see 3 other Black people in my daily travels in working and living where I live, which is 3-4 miles, actually 7 miles south of San Francisco. There's just no Black people here. And so there's absolutely no interaction. So hopefully, eventually I'll come across some Black people. I miss my people. I'm starved for them. And it's so lonely when you do encounter other Black people in my area. We acknowledge each other because just in case something break out, we'll know we got each other's back. It's a sad commentary, but there's only 38,000 Black people left in San Francisco proper out of 1 million. And if you go 2 miles south, the numbers just dwindle as you go south from San Francisco. Thank you.
Shocking. Well, Julie, what about Boston?
Well,
I
there
keep-
is a
I can help
there is a good group of immigrants, Black immigrant women in Boston, but I'm not sure that they will be available to join the meeting because most of them, the one I know, they don't really speak English, you know. So I'm not sure they will be comfortable joining this meeting. I did have a group of 4 women, like I told you last time. They came and they did express interest. Those 4 women, I can talk to them again. Those 4 women are pretty much educated and they came at one meeting of the will. So I will talk to those 4 women. I'll give them handouts and see if they can join. So that's all I can do. But the rest, the majority of the women that I work with want to be able to join this.
Well, let's continue on because the Metro Atlanta branch has significant numbers of Black women. So does the Fannie Lou Hamer, and so does the Triad. Now, in the Triangle, Ashley, there's you, Mary White, and Rosa are the only women of color I know in that branch. So can you and Mary White actually speak to how the numbers can be improved in the Triangle? I think Ashley said she's restricted to the chat. So Mary, can you unmute yourself and verify what I'm saying, that there are only 3 women of color in the Triangle branch?
Mary said that she's the one that can only, she's using her brother's computer, so she can only respond via chat.
Well, I don't see anything in the chat from either one of them. I thought it was Ashley who said that as well, because Ashley came on video and said that. So, well, let's move to brand new branches. I lived in Rhode Island, in Boston for many years, Julie. And so I know a few women in Boston who might join. One Black woman who is very active in the freedom movement. You are correct as far as I am aware. However, I am certain to give it some thought. So Mary White is saying that I'm correct about the 3 women of color, Ashley, Rosa, and Mary White in the Triangle. Those are the only ones I know. Oh yeah, so she's saying she's having computer problems. So at any rate, Julia, I will help you. The woman's name is Sarah Mercia, and she's in Boston. And she's a younger woman. She lived in Rhode Island for many years, which is how I knew her. And she's recently married with the most beautiful little girl. And so I missed her when I went to Rhode Island in early September. But I will ask her to go online and join. I'm not sure how much time she would have, but we need to bring Setu back if possible. And out of all of these years of a Boston branch, I am shocked. And so what about Betty Burks? Wasn't she once in the Boston branch?
I'm not sure. I
Oh,
don't know her. I mean,
Betty Burks is an elderly woman now, but she was the only Black person to be president of WILF. And she was president of WILF from 1994 to 1997. And she's come to one of our meetings before. And I do have her number. So I'll call her and find out what she can do around Massachusetts. And we're starting a branch in Rhode Island, and we're starting a branch in New York City led by Black women. The woman who is an organizer in Rhode Island, her name is Gwen Andrade, and I think she may have Caribbean origins, either Cape Verde or Caribbean. And so she is going to be working to build the Rhode Island branch as a statewide branch because it's such a small state. And so people drive the whole state in less than 45 minutes. So she's gonna build the Rhode Island branch. And I was up there and I talked to at least 7 women who are gonna join. So I'm sure we'll get to 10 by the end of the year. In the New York branch, Nellie Hester Bailey, she's a longtime Harlem activist, and she lives in Manhattan now. So she's going to be building the New York branch. So the whole point is that, well, there are going to be many more members of the Black Liberation Caucus coming on board between now and the end of the year. Over, Julie. I'm done.
good. Sounds good. Okay, so now we're gonna go to the WILF US National Board nominations. And Philip Cole is the at-large candidate.
Okay, thank you for your attention. I've got my application in, my letters of recommendation, and I should be on the ballot for the at-large position. And as I said earlier, I am sitting in on as many calls as possible, so I will be able to be of some use to different branches and different committees. And if I do get the seat, I will be in contact with each and every branch to see if I could be a voice on the board for those who have not been heard. Unfortunately, this election system of WILF is akin to what the American election system was from the outset, where there was no campaigning. Well, Benjamin Harris was probably the first president that actually campaigned openly. Before that, campaigning was unheard of. So I have to just sit back and wait. But I will say this, I think everybody's familiar with Kamala Harris. She is a product of the San Francisco Democratic political machine with Willie Brown, who was once the mayor here and the most powerful Black elected leader in America for 2 decades as the Speaker of the House in California. He is my mentor, as was he was a mentor to Kamala Harris, and now she's vice president. And in light of what I said about the lack of Black population in San Francisco, the political power of Black people in San Francisco far outweighs their numbers. The mayor is Black. Willie Brown is the kingmaker, period, in California. So just their power from his position far outstretches the numbers, and he still carries a lot of weight in the state of California. And I say that because the Speaker of the House in California had all the budgetary power in California for 2 decades, or actually up until Willie Brown left the office. And after he left the office, they dismantled that power base. So now the Speaker has hardly any power.
Philip,
Yes.
Philip, we're supposed to be talking about the nominations for the WILF board. And
Okay.
what I was hoping you would do was say who the other nominees are. I do know that Diane Blake is nominated for secretary. The nominations closed on October 15th. So who else do you know who's running? I heard that Darian DeLu was not running for president. So who is running for president? Who is
She
running?
is running. She's running.
So she
I
is running.
I haven't seen anything posted at all on these nominations, period.
Well, it looks like Dee knows more than you do. But the one
Yeah.
thing I will say to you, Philip, and caution you, WILF is a feminist peacemaking organization. So in terms of your role, I would think that you would really respect feminism as a value, so that women, as you step into the role of at-large board member, I think you're gonna run into trouble if you see yourself as kind of overarchingly going into committee after committee and trying to help us or direct us in some way as women. So I think I'm a little bit concerned, and I hope we can have another conversation, just one-on-one about that. But since you're saying these things in the open group, I think I just want to share my concern
Okay,
now.
allow me to address that issue. I will be seeking guidance from the membership, and not, I don't have the history or the knowledge to do any guidance myself. So I'll be looking for help and input from all the membership, and basically taking my cues from the membership body itself. Thank you.
Well, and we can talk about that because the branches are very weak now. Many of the branches are going out of business. So I think we should talk because I'm running for Membership Development Committee Chair next year in 2022. So let's try to talk, Philip. I think I have your number. But Dee,
Yes.
can you tell us, Dee, about who's running? I know that Diane Blake is finally running as secretary, and so she's a shoe-in. So you say Darian is actually running. Well, nobody else probably wanted to run, so she's probably going to be a shoe-in for the next 3 years. What do you know, Dee, about who's running?
Hi, Lisa. So that was part of where I had wanted to ask some questions towards the end. I'm a little curious to know as to whether it's common standard practice within WELF for established members to reach out to newcomers. I have had a couple of great calls with people welcoming me, into WELF, and asked a lot of questions because, I obviously walking into something new, you hear all sides of everything, right? You ask and you give people, let them have their perspectives and perceptions. So the two people that have reached out to me are Barbara Nielsen and Darian. And Darian reached out to me about 3 times, and we had a phone conversation a couple of days ago in which she was trying to welcome me, which I thought was really great that she would take brand new members and reach out and try to make them feel welcome and valued. One of the things that she did mention during the conversation is that she will be running again. So I don't know everyone that's on the board. I don't know who is all running, but I do know that she confirmed with me that she does plan to run again. And then, like I said, I have a few other questions and details and things like that, time permitting, regarding that.
Well, Julie, since I think we're kind of poised to end around 5:45, I'd just like to say a little bit more about the nominations and the leadership. See, I was told by Robin Lloyd that Darian had said she would not run. and that was just a week ago. And so I think what has probably ended up happening is that nobody is running, or somebody Darian doesn't think should run is actually running. And they have a gag order on all of the candidates. We can talk about whatever we want to talk about in the Black Liberation Caucus, but in any of the subcommittee meetings or anything else, all of the candidates were told, and maybe Philip got these instructions as well, you can't talk about who that you're running for office, and you can't mention it. So Diane Blay and Joan Goddard, when I raised the issue of Diane Blay running for secretary, perhaps you were there, Dee, when that happened. And Diane made the point, because she was facilitating the immigration justice subcommittee, and she said, oh, I'm not supposed to talk about that. And Joan was quick to tell her she wasn't supposed to talk about that. So we're going to be kept in the dark, I guess, until the ballots show up in the mail. But I think we all are very clear that we're all voting for Philip. And so I only vote for people I know. And I made it clear to Darian, I know her and I don't think she should be a president, so she won't get my vote. But I will be voting for Philip. So Philip has his hand raised.
Yes, Philip.
Oh, okay, I thank you for your support. I only am assured of one vote. That would be my own, because I'm going to vote for myself. That's for sure. And hopefully others will too, knowing that I'm a male running in this organization, primarily of women. It would be still a surprise to me, even if I'm only, running unopposed to get the seat. I'm not banking on anything. Also, as far as talking about publicly who's running, who's not running, who the candidates are, there's actually no prohibition in the bylaws against speaking and promoting oneself. That is a recent self-imposed or historically self-imposed prohibition on speaking. Just like with the US election, there was never any prohibition against campaigning. Somebody just finally decided to do it. They felt it was unseemly. These slave owners thought, that was the one so-called ethical fiber they had in it. They thought that was unseemly to campaign. But someone finally did step up and start campaigning. And lastly, I would like to make sure that Dee Murphy has the ability on this call to ask all the questions. I'm waiting with bated breath if she has more questions. I would like to make, hopefully, you can ensure that she gets the opportunity to express herself fully. Thank you.
So I just want to remind us that we are ending at 5:45, and we still have two topics: the December 11 conference and the Truth and Reconciliation Process proposal. And I think those are Teresa's topics, right? Teresa?
Sorry, my only topic is the December conference, and I would suggest that we table the Truth and Reconciliation item to the next meeting in November, because there's nothing urgent about that.
Sounds good.
And I can quickly give my report. George's thumbs up on tabling, because she would have been doing the Truth and Reconciliation piece. So most of you know that on December the 11th, from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Pacific Time, the Fannie Lou Hamer branch will be hosting our first annual Fannie Lou Hamer Human Rights Conference. We requested $1,500 in a mini grant from Will, and the check, I picked it up today, so it will be going in the bank. Our branch treasurer will be putting it in the bank tomorrow. So we have the money to pay out honoraria to people who will be speaking on different topics and facilitating breakout sessions. So we're going to have 5 topics: ending mass incarceration, 1, abolishing the death penalty, 2, immigration justice, 3, the treaty prohibiting nuclear weapons, 4, and the 5th would be the UN decade for people of African descent / reparations. And so we have facilitators for all of the breakouts. And so it's going to be dynamic. George is going to be facilitating the TPNW breakouts. And so we'll have one session of 40-minute breakouts for all 5 topics, which will go from 2:15 Eastern time to 2:55 Eastern time. And then we'll do a quick report back, and then people will be moved into the second breakouts, which would be a repeat of the other 5 breakouts. And so people can switch to another breakout, but people will be able to self-select on the breakouts they go to. And so we have the wonderful experience of Ellen Schwartz from the Sacramento branch, who was the main tech person for the Congress. And we also have Ellen Thomas, who is in the Jane Addams branch, and she's very good at all things tech, particularly at the recordings and getting it up on YouTube. So there's going to be a 6th breakout, which will be in the main room. And the reason why the 6th breakout will be in the main room is because Ellen has explained that you must keep something going in that room for all the recordings to work. I don't understand the technical aspect of it, but I've gotten Nellie Hester, who is the New York branch organizer, to agree to do a dialogue with me on our branch organizing. And so it'll be me organizing the Fannie Lou Hamer branch and how it was done. And she'll be talking about her progress in organizing the New York branch, which I expect that the New York branch will be online. We may also delve into some deeper topics of burn patriarchy down to the ground, which Nellie is an expert on it, and I'm certainly a proponent of it. And so that's what will be happening in the main session during the breakouts. And then when we all come back together at 4 o'clock after the breakouts have ended at 3:45, then we will all talk about what are we gonna do about it. So this is a conference for doers. And so all branches are invited to it, and we're trying to get 125 to 150 people. We'll be asking for UFPJ and all the other traditional peace organizations to register. I'm going to put the event up on Facebook today because we're going to be raising money from now until the conference happens in support of the Fannie Lou Hamer branch. So it's a fundraiser for the Fannie Lou Hamer branch that will go up today in support of the conference. So that's my report, Julie.
Thank you. So this is gonna be online or in person?
Strictly Zoom, which is why we're talking about recording it. So anybody where can join. And wonderful Cynthia Lazaroff, she accepted my friend request, and she's a woman who is really an expert on the TPNW. So she thinks it's a great conference. And so I asked her to find us someone from Costa Rica, since the ambassador to the UN from Costa Rica is Elaine White. And I'm not sure if she's a member of WILF in Costa Rica, but Costa Rica does have a WILF section. And I reached out to the contact on the WILF International list, which those contacts are all so outdated and bad. But Cynthia Lazaroff says she'll try to find us a speaker on the TPNW in the breakouts that's gonna be from Costa Rica. So it's gonna be an international conference in many ways. So I'm excited.
Very good job, Teresa. Thank you. And Dee, do you have some questions before we wrap up with announcements?
At this point, it seems to me, I asked about the event that Teresa said she's putting on Facebook. I asked if it would be put on the Southern Anti-Racism Network page, or if there's another page where it will be posted. As far as my questions regarding, WILF goals and structures, I think everyone's kind of wanting to wrap up. So I messaged Philip and asked him if there's a way to contact him. I can also send him an email and ask the questions. And that way, I won't be tying up everyone's time.
Well, I'm very glad that Dee asked a question about how it would be live streamed, because it will be live streamed on YouTube. And as I understand, and I'll let George answer this question because she's more tech savvy, but I understand from Ellen Thomas that it will be live streamed, and we're going to have a link to the Southern Anti-Racism Network website that will allow it to be live streamed, possibly at our website, but definitely on Facebook in the Southern Anti-Racism Network group on Facebook, which has over 2,000 people. So I'm looking forward to it being out widely on December 11th. Thank you. George.
So there are 3 announcements. I'm going to read them rapidly. So there is the Sunday International Solidarity Meeting on October 10th. I don't have the time. And the AHR meeting is going to be on Thursday, the 20th.
Julie, I
And,
think that's the Wednesday, the 27th. Or do
Are
you
you
know something
sure?
I don't know?
I think it's
George,
20th.
Julie, this sounds like it was last month's announcements.
Oh, was it? Oh, but there is a meeting on the 20th.
On the
AHR
20th
meeting
of November?
of October.
Well, this is the 24th of October.
Today is the 24th, and the meeting is going to be on Thursday, the 20th.
No, Julie, you're in the past. So the next full Advancing Human Rights Committee meeting is November 29th. Joan Goddard announced it in a recent meeting that it's November 29th, I think. Let me take a look at my calendar. But it can't be on the 20th of October because that's already gone. So we can't be talking October 20th because today is already the 24th, Julie.
I know that, but I believe
Our agenda, which went out, and I trust it's very likely that I double or triple checked this. On the agenda that went out, it says Wednesday, the 27th, and to contact ARH chair. I don't think that's old, but it could be wrong. I don't remember what Joan said on a recent meeting.
Oh yeah,
I have. Is this for the next Advancing Human Rights Committee meeting?
Yes.
Is that what everyone's asking?
Yes.
I was thinking the November meeting is on the 29th, but I believe George is correct that the October meeting, which we haven't gotten to yet, is the 27th.
I wrote down the wrong date. I have the 25th.
Anyway, we can double check and send out, the latest. But I'm pretty sure that Barbara was asking us to respond by Monday because we have to report at the meeting, which is on the 20th. But we can double check. As soon as we're done, I will
Great.
I'll shoot a message to John or Barbara.
Yeah, definitely to Joan because she would know for sure. But on that first, but Julie, on the first thing that you named, is that the people from the UK about the Sunday solidarity meetings? What was that you were announcing?
Yeah, that's what it is. But you saying that those were announcements from last meeting?
That
It's
one
in the
wasn't.
agenda.
No, Teresa was going to give us a brief, under
Great.
announcements, a brief report about her experience on October 10th on that international call.
Okay.
It was awesome. And she
Yeah,
was going to tell us a little bit about it.
yeah, because no, I won't do that. We could save it to the next meeting. I'm hoping that they will invite me to the next session because it was really quite sad that how Black people in the UK are trying to deal with the whole Brexit thing and the attacks on Black people as immigrants in the UK from the colonized countries of Jamaica and other places where Black people now are being treated like second-class citizens in the UK. It was bad, awful. But we can put that off until next month.
Okay.
Let's talk about the date for the next meeting because the Fannie Lou Hamer branch, Deidre, is co-facilitating. Deidre and I should be co-facilitating on that date.
It
So
says November 20th, November 20th, 28th. I mean,
it's November 28th because it's after Thanksgiving. So the Black Liberation Caucus will meet at 4 p.m. on Sunday, November 28th. Because remember, we said we got to keep it to the last Sunday of the month, except when there's a conflict, like December, there's a conflict. So we're not doing. But November 28th is when we gather again. So let's try to other Black people in our branches are present and that the Fresno branch is present. We can get Philip on the California side to see what Black people are in the California branches since he's the only one in his branch. Well, thank you, Julie, for doing keeping the meeting going. I'm sorry I talked so much, Julie. I'm guilty of that.
No, that's fine. You are a wealth of information, and I really appreciate that.
Well, now that I've gotten old, I just see I talk so much, so it's just so embarrassing. Please forgive me.
No, we're learning. For my part, I really appreciate it. We